Hello YouTube, it's Mr. Magz here, and today on Stupid Nintendo Articles, I'm going over the article titled, "Are we sure Nintendo knows what they're doing?" Now, I've actually done one or two articles from this site before, and I have a feeling this isn't going to be the last time. And this article, the concept of the article isn't terrible. The writer is upset over Nintendo canceling the production of the NES Classic, and I can understand that. It's a relatively new console that Nintendo never explicitly said would be like a limited time thing, or it'll be like a collector's item type thing. Although it was kind of implied to an extent, but regardless, they didn't come out and say it. So yes, being upset about that it's reasonable, I guess. But just the way they go about doing it, just the clickbaity title, like all these videos have. Are we sure we know what they're doing? Simply because they discontinued a product that isn't necessary for their production going forward. Further, considering they have the Switch that's selling really well right now, and also it's a product that, I just kind of assumed that it was going to be like a novelty item. It was just going to be like a limited time thing anyway. I personally didn't expect it to be discontinued this quickly, but I have a feeling that the Nintendo Switch selling as well as it is helped with that. If the Nintendo Switch hadn't sold as much as it is, if it wasn't selling as fast, maybe they would have, kept the NES Mini out for maybe a month or two longer, just to, have a small bump, in case the Switch's sales aren't, quite up there. I can understand that. But because the Switch is selling well, they went ahead and discontinued it because they don't need it, because the Switch is selling, and any issues that they are having with the NES Mini, they don't need to worry about anymore because the Switch is selling. So to an extent, I can understand that. I don't feel like they have no idea what they're doing simply because they discontinued a product that they didn't need to make in the first place, and it's not one that defines who they are like the Switch is. But I'll get more into that in the article. But also, I wouldn't be as mad at this article because, like I said, the concept is fine. They're upset about the NES Classic being discontinued. I wouldn't be as mad if they didn't have the clickbait title, and also if the structure of the article itself was just overall better. There are just a couple of typo issues, a couple of I guess sarcastic statements that didn't really translate well, and just some other things in this article that just kind of confused me. So let's get right into it. Only Nintendo would find a way to intentionally paint a blemish on their most recent successes. The Switch is widely viewed as a success. The latest The Legend of Zelda installment is being dubbed the best version ever created. I feel like you have two ideas going on at the same time, and you didn't finish or even really start either one. I feel like what you meant to say was, one of them was Breath of the Wild on the Switch is the better version over the Wii U version, and also Breath of the Wild is the best Zelda installment. But you just kind of didn't, unless I'm just reading it wrong, which I very well could, or maybe is being dubbed as the best game ever created, the best Zelda ever created, just that version, the best. I get it, you're saying it's the best version of Legend of Zelda, but that's not the. Well, in that case, why don't you say the best in the franchise? I feel like that would make your point come across a bit stronger, but whatever. I'm probably just nitpicking at this point. And things across the board seem to be going very well for the strangest company on Earth. Really? Nintendo is the strangest company on Earth? Yeah, okay. However, it appears Nintendo seems to have fallen right back into its old ways. After a mere 6 months on the market, it officially discontinued the NES Classic in America. Also, I think in Japan and Europe too. I don't think it's already been discontinued, but they're going to be. That doesn't really help my argument, but regardless, it's being discontinued everywhere, as far as I know. You certainly read that last line correctly, and if I'm not, I don't think it has a date anywhere. Okay, well, it was written yesterday, and we had known for over a week, I think, or maybe it was just, yeah, it was either last Thursday or Friday, so yeah, almost a week, if not more. We know for that long that the NES Classic was being discontinued. So you're just now talking about it and acting like it's such a big deal. Like, I don't know. Like, if you had written this last Friday or like a day or two after it had happened, then yes, that's reasonable for you to like be this kind of condescending. But it's been almost a week, if not more. I can't remember exactly when it was announced to be discontinued, but I don't feel like it's having that like condescending line right there is really necessary right now. Nintendo has indeed discontinued the NES Classic Edition at perhaps the worst possible time in the product lifecycle. 6 months out, it's still very much in high demand. Secondary markets are the most telling sign that the market as a whole hasn't capped and people are still interested in buying this little piece of nostalgia. Granted, yes. Do I feel like Nintendo should have discontinued it already? No. It is only less than 6 months, actually. So, my opinion of the whole NES Classic situation as a whole is kind of jaded, considering they literally had nothing console-wise over the holiday season except for the NES Classic, and they misjudged the demand for this thing, which is ridiculous, but whatever. Nintendo just kind of does that. I don't know why. And it kind of seems like they just never really got the consoles out there to meet demand, period. But you know what? They decided that it was worth it. Just go ahead and get rid of it. Probably because the Nintendo Switch is going to have the Virtual Console soon anyway. Hopefully with all those games plus many more already on it. So having the NES Classic and the Switch Virtual Console running at the same time you might kind of cannibalize yourself there. Now granted, a lot of people might just buy the NES Classic so that they can just have it. Then again, it is super small, so I don't really know if people would want to buy that simply because it looks like an NES that they can like put on their shelf and say, "Oh yeah, I have an NES," since it's so small. I don't know. I never actually got one, so I don't really know exactly like how it looks proportionally to the like actual NES, but I don't know. I feel like maybe they should have announced the Switch Virtual Console first, assuming that is the main driving point for them to discontinue it, and then they get rid of it. But getting rid of it before, I'm assuming that Virtual Console is coming really soon. That's just my opinion. Of course, Nintendo hasn't given a valid reason for putting an end to what could have been a consistent source of additional revenue. I mean, it's 30 games on a $60 little box. Granted, I'm pretty sure that it costs less than $60 to put all that together. But like I just said, the NES Mini would, in theory, compete with the Switch's Virtual Console once it comes out. And those games right now go for $5 or more each. So having that out and then having the Virtual Console at the same time, they're probably, at that point, they will be losing money on potential sales of the Virtual Console. So, like I said, if they had discontinued this after the VC had already been out, or at least announced, then I would understand this decision much, much better.
One can only speculate at the reasons. It could be anything from production costs, distribution issues, low margin per unit, or even the fact that some gamers have pirated the console to add games not featured within the original lineup. All those are valid reasons. Like, if the Switch is doing so well as it is, it's making them a lot of money. I mean, Zelda, at least in America, is selling more than the console itself, so they're getting a lot of extra money from Zelda alone. Maybe they just decide, you know what, we're not making that much money off this console, off this little box. We weren't gonna run it forever anyway, so why not just go ahead and discontinue it while the Switch is still selling really hot? We don't want to, worry about producing 2 or even really 3 with the 3DS. Systems at the same time. It'd be easier for their distribution departments to just worry about the 2 main products they have right now. So it makes sense that they would try to cut down on just stuff they're selling in order to focus in on the Switch and focus on phasing out the 3DS. My thought is that it would be a combination of manufacturing and production complexities, grouped with low margin per unit. Then again, I wouldn't be surprised to hear that Nintendo canceled further production because they're tired of retailers demanding additional supply. They're tired of people demanding to give them their money? That doesn't make sense. That's just being cynical at this point. You wouldn't be surprised if Nintendo got upset at retailers wanting to sell more of their product. That really, really doesn't make sense. Which, again, that is why, you're clearly jaded on what Nintendo's been doing recently. You think, they only do things that don't make sense. So it would make perfect sense for them to do this thing that doesn't make sense. It would help if your article, which it doesn't do this, it would help if your article later down the line spoke more about other things that Nintendo has done recently that could be kind of iffy, like the whole YouTube monetization debacle that's been going over the past couple of years, or the shooting down of fan projects like another Metroid remake, or what is it, Pokemon Uranium, or stuff like that. I could understand that if towards the end of the article, you were like, and this isn't just the only thing that I'm, complaining about. There's also these things that are also concerning that makes you wonder about if Nintendo knows what they're doing. But you don't do that. So you just complaining about the NES Classic being discontinued as Nintendo being worried that Nintendo doesn't know what they're doing just seems a bit of a jump in logic. But that might just be my opinion. I don't know. Regardless of the reasons, Nintendo executives look rather unintelligent at this point. Again, the Switch is selling amazingly. They don't need to sell this thing. I mean, is it making them money? Probably, but when the Switch is selling as well as it is, and the NES Classic more than likely is going to be discontinued before June anyway, I mean, like I said before, I don't think they should have discontinued it already. But even if they had discontinued it at any point, period, people would have been mad. So I feel like discontinuing it now might be the best option. I don't know, especially Mario Kart's coming out next week. They want as many Switches out there as they possibly can, so they don't want to focus on the NES Classic as well. That just might be speculation. I don't know, but that does make sense to me. Even if you're making a few bucks per unit, you're still keeping the Nintendo name alive through retail stores. There's a comma, right? Yeah. Should have been a period. Oh well. Again, I'm just nitpicking, but whatever. People are still talking about your company, which equates to free marketing. And I mean, people are talking about Nintendo regardless. Zelda has the most perfect scores of any game, period, or at least since Metacritic has been around. The Switch is selling faster than the Wii did. It's already sold close to 3 million units in a little over a month. So people are talking about Nintendo, and the 3DS is still going fairly strong, which I know there are people who think that the 3DS should go ahead and bite it, which I personally feel like, especially after 2017, just go ahead and like 2017, just get rid of it. But as of right now, the 3DS name is still pretty hot. So Nintendo has products out there that people have their eyes and mind on. I don't necessarily feel like they need this NES Classic to keep the brand alive like you're trying to argue. You're tapping back into a group of old school gamers that might love the NES Classic Edition and take the plunge on the Switch as a result. Again, I feel like that might be a slight jump in logic. I don't really... I feel like the people who want the NES Classic want the old Nintendo and only the old Nintendo. Plus, it's only $60, so it's an easy purchase. The Switch being $300 plus a game, plus a controller, whatever else. You don't need another controller, but if you did or whatever, then that's upwards of $400 just to start out. So, I mean, granted, later, and if these people do have Nintendo on the mind with the NES Classic, they more than likely know that the Switch is the thing. Unless I'm just wrong about that, I don't know. But I don't feel like you need the NES Classic out there in order for the Switch to sell. I feel like the Switch is selling well in spite of the NES Classic, or I don't know if in spite of is the right word, but regardless of if the NES Classic was out or not. Instead, you wipe out those potential opportunities and once again look lost and confused. They may look lost and confused to you, but they're over there, showering in money over what they're breaking in from the 3DS and the Switch sales that are still pretty high. Now, granted, the 3DS sales have gone down, but the last quarter, or the last 3 months of 2016 were the best 3-month period that the 3DS ever had. So, again, they didn't necessarily need the NES Classic in order to make money. They have other forms of revenue. So, maybe they look confused to you, but it kind of feels like they know what they're doing. They're making a lot of money. So clearly they looked at their focus groups and they oh, we don't need this thing in order to keep going. We're gonna close production soon anyway. Why don't we just go ahead and do it so we can focus all in on the Switch and 3DS? One thing is for certain, Nintendo doesn't want their money. Due to they care to rebuild their brand. You mean rebuild the brand that the Switch is seeming to capture just fine? At least right now, the Switch is selling better than every other Nintendo console ever, even faster than the Wii, if we are to believe what Nintendo high-ups are saying. Is at least selling way better than the Wii U did in its first month, especially in Japan. So, I don't feel like they need this NES Classic to... I said that kind of weird. Oh well, I don't feel like they need this NES Classic in order to keep their brand alive when the Nintendo Switch, which, remember, has the word Nintendo in the title again, unlike the Wii and Wii U, which only had Nintendo on the box and wasn't called the Nintendo Wii or the Nintendo Wii U, like the Nintendo GameCube and N64 and SNES were. The Wii and Wii U were the first consoles ever. Even their handhelds have had Nintendo in the title. The Wii and Wii U didn't have Nintendo in the title. The Switch went back to having Nintendo in the title. And they went back to the red logo. So
I feel like they're keeping their brand alive pretty well, in my humble opinion. I mean, is the NES Classic helping? Sure. I mean, a lot of people do appreciate the 80s and or 90s when they thought Nintendo was at their best, but Nintendo seems to be doing pretty good right now too. So yeah, they don't necessarily need the NES to keep their brand alive. They would rather flood retail shelves with overpriced akimbo characters that will collect dust on some gamers' shelves than continue selling a repackaged piece of wonderful nostalgia. Overpriced akimbo characters? I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt there in saying that's a typo. I don't believe it to be a typo, especially since amiibo is not a proper noun technically, because it's lowercase a M-I-I-I-B-O. Amiibo, yeah. And 2, you got the M and the I's mixed up. so was that like a satirical jab at amiibo? I don't get it. Why would you? Why? I don't get it. That just confuses me to no end. Akimbo characters? Maybe if someone in the comment section can explain that to me. I have no idea why he's calling it that. I don't know. And then and then of course you have to say they're overpriced when they're still still a pretty high quality figurine that does stuff in multiple games, but whatever, I've gone over that multiple times in the past. So you're going to call the amiibo characters overpriced, but then try to damage control saying that the NES Mini shouldn't have been discontinued by calling it a repackaged piece of nostalgia. I don't know, just calling it a repackaged piece of nostalgia has like a bit of a negative connotation to it, at least in my opinion. So I don't know. Maybe you could have used a better wording there, or I don't know. I don't know what you could have used, but that wording just a bit iffy to me. It seems to be another few steps backward for Nintendo, just as they're taking a few strides forward. Do you mind elaborating more on what Nintendo has done that... Because like I said before, you essentially are claiming that Nintendo has no idea what they're doing, even though this is the only thing you're complaining about. So I don't really understand why you're so jaded towards Nintendo. Just because they're getting rid of this one item that was a novelty at best, that they weren't going to sell forever anyway, and they're focusing all in on the Switch, their new product on the line that a lot of people are buying and being happy with. Yeah, I don't understand. Like I said before, there are definitely things to get mad at Nintendo over. Like the YouTube monetization and the getting rid of fan projects, and just basically how they dealt with the entire last couple of years of the Wii U. That was a complete debacle. I'll completely admit that. If you wanted to cite any of that information here, then sure, but you didn't. So, I don't know. I feel like you're jumping the gun just a bit too much by not including anything else other than just them getting rid of this one product. I can't wait to see. Oh wait, maybe it's like you had multiple ideas of sentences going on at the same time. You didn't proofread, but I can't wait to see what else the company can do to push away paying customers in the coming months. Really, them getting rid of this novelty item, this repackaged piece of nostalgia,
is pushing away customers. I that doesn't make sense to me. They still have many other products out there that cater to nostalgia. They have retro style 3DSs. They have the Amiibo. They have the Virtual Console. Just other little accessories that call back to the NES and other past systems and whatnot. So I really, I already said that. And on they really, I just wish you gave a bit more evidence to all this hatred you have towards Nintendo, because you just talk about the NES Classic being the only thing you're really complaining about here, and then say, I can't wait to see what else they do to push away paying customers, when this seems to be the only thing that you're really upset about? Again, unless I'm just missing something, I don't feel like your anger is justified. And I already given you plenty of things in the video to be complaining about, but you've just decided to focus on this one thing that isn't really that big of a deal. At least in my opinion. I mean, granted, there very well could be people who are watching this video who wanted an NES Classic and now can't get one outside of eBay. And I understand that. But, like I said, the Virtual Console is a thing. You can buy the NES games on the Wii, Wii U, and 3DS Virtual Console. So, you can still have access to these games. I don't know. I feel like this entire article is just a bit of a leap in logic, and it definitely would have helped if it was just written a bit better. And there were, like I point out, there's a couple of like grammar and like, I guess Akimbo was a spelling mistake. I hope it was, but there's just a couple of errors here and there that just make it an overall like. You had an idea here. You could have talked about the NES Classic. Oh, like, what is Nintendo doing? I understand that. But when you phrase it, oh, they have no idea what the flip they're doing, period, simply because they got rid of this one novelty item. When the Switch is selling amazingly, they had the Super Bowl commercial, like, their commercials, period, are doing really well. Zelda is selling amazingly, it's reviewing well. There are other games that look amazing. I don't know. I feel like Nintendo, at least regarding the Switch, seems to be doing everything at least reasonably right so far. But I don't know. That might just be me. If anyone in the comments section wanted an NES Classic and didn't get one and you're mad about it, please tell me. And if you think that Nintendo doesn't know what they're doing, I'd like to have a discussion with you down below. So, yeah. I'll probably revisit this website at some point in the future. I just have this feeling. I think this is the third time I've talked about an article on this website. So, anyway, guys, until next time.